Have you ever connected with a deck? Some people have main decks, a deck that they can play forever without getting tired of it. A deck that feels as if it was designed specifically for them. For 2 years of playing this game, I never had a deck like this. Until now. Hey guys, iKailaKai here, and you may have noticed that my upload schedule recently has been a bit slow. And the reason for this is not actually because I've been lazy, although I've done that in the past, but it's actually because I'm training extremely hard for the upcoming 3v3 in Bandai Cardfest in Tokyo. For this 3v3 tournament, I've actually teamed up with 2 people who I think deserve to have a spot in the World Finals, but barely couldn't make it. These 2 people are Hervoye, or Rail Zero, and Jonas Abraham. Now these are 2 of some of the best players to ever touch this game. And then there's me on the team. So I was, and still am, deathly afraid of how I might end up doing in this 3v3. Although there's still 2 weeks until the tournament, and it's the highest pressure scenario that I've been in since I've started this game. It's the most confident I've been as well. And the reason for this, of course, is, as the title suggests, Blue-Purple Luffy. I think that this leader is as insane as it sounds. In this video, you're going to see one of my games from my early testing against one of the Japanese champions. Hanga-san, or Mr. Hanger, won the Autumn 3v3 with Blue Nami back in OP08 with RP Law being so rampant. Firstly, as many people have requested, here is the list at the start of the video. I will discuss it more at the end of this video for those who are interested, and during the game I'm going to be talking about, in a more commentary style, over the game, talking about my plays and thinkings as the game is going on. I hope that you guys enjoy this video. If you consider liking and subscribing, it greatly helps me out, and let's get into the video. So a lot of the times when you test with physical cards, you don't actually get to try the mirror because it's so hard to have multiple of the same cards. So not only do I get to play against one of the Japanese champions, but I also get to test the mirrors. Now, I chose to go second in this matchup just because I feel like you could probably still do well going second. I do not know if that's correct. Now, pausing on the mulligan, we can first see Mr. Hanger's hand. Now, he has the 1-cost Law, 3-cost Orojiro, 4-cost Bonclay, as well as multiple top end. This is basically everything that you want to have in a starting hand if you're going for this version. Now, the version that I run actually doesn't run the 3-cost Orojiro, nor the 1-cost Law. So although we're playing the same deck, the way that they work as a system is quite different. So it'll be very interesting to see how not only going first for second interacts, but also how these 2 different versions will interact. Now, my hand is actually exceptional if I'm going first, and the reason for this is because if I'm going first, I really want to have either 1 ramp card or 3. Now, if I can get 1 ramp card, that means I can get to 8 dong 1 turn faster and 10 dong on what should be my 9 dong turn. This means, of course, that I can use my leader ability 1 turn early. However, there's another plan, where when you're going first, you can do 3 ramp cards on the same turn to get to 10 dong on what should be your 7 dong turn. Going second, on the other hand, due to the fact that you start with 1 extra dong, you only need to ramp twice to get to 10 dong on what should be your 8 dong turn. Both of these plays, I think, are very powerful, which is why I still don't know which side is better. However, for my side, because I can see 2 ramp cards already, I can consistently get to 10, so I believe that I ended up keeping this. Both of us have kept our hands. Mr. Hanger gets to start with a search. Now, I don't actually think that you need anything except for counter in this early game, because he already has all the parts that he needs. Obviously, if he can find another ramp card in the 3-cost Orojiro, then he can consistently get the triple ramp. However, he doesn't see that, so he just picks up 2000 counter. Going into my turn, I just don't have anything because I don't even play a 1-cost searcher of any kind, so I immediately pass it back to him. Next, on Mr. Hanger's turn, he hits with 6000 power. My hand actually doesn't have any 1000 counters, which means that this 6000 power attack is a bit annoying for me, and I don't want to cut 2000 this early considering how few there are in my deck, so I decided to take it. I think that in this early game, we're just both trying to ramp and see what's going to happen in the late game, essentially. I hit for 7000 for leader, setting up for gear second here. He hits for 4000 into leader to just get the ramp. He hits with his leader, play Bonclay, and then of course he draws gear second, meaning that he has successfully triple ramped me, meaning that he's going to be at 10 dong next turn. Going into my turn, not only do I need to hit these Orojiro, but also I am forced to ramp on this turn, or else I'm just going to get blown out of the water due to the fact that he can use his leader ability and I can't. I get the 1 ramp off of It's to Die For, and play a 5-cost blocker. Now you can see the reason why I didn't play It's to Die For on the second turn, because on this turn, because I start with 7 dong, if I play It's to Die For and ramp it active dong, that gives me 5 dong left. And with this 5 dong, of course, I can play a blocker in either the 5 cost Nami or the 5 cost Luffy. Going into the 10 dong turn for the blue purple Luffy player, we're still getting used to this, so sorry, we're going to make a couple of mistakes with our leader ability. But the leader ability activates before the draw for your turn, which means that you search through your top 5, you choose a card to put to your hand if it's Straw Hat, and then you can put the rest of the cards to the top or bottom of your deck. And after this, you get to draw. So not only do you have to think about what card you want to put to your hand, and obviously this is going to be public information, as he picked up Usohachi, so now I know that he has a 2000 counter, but the rest of the cards being able to be put to the top or the bottom means that you can control the next card that's drawn. So with the 9 cost bomb, you can choose to put any card that you want into your life, assuming that it was in the top 5 cards from your search. This means that if you have really good cards with triggers, such as Sanji's Pilaf, then you can start to accrue more and more advantage. Now, I'm just grateful that he did not have 9 cost Sanji on this turn, and hopefully here, I can find it. If I can find 9 cost Sanji here, then I think that I can still hold on to the board. And although I have 9 cost Sanji in my top 5, I don't have any other top end, so I'm forced to play the 9 cost Sanji into a rather weak target. Although of course I want to play something like 9 cost Mom or 8 cost Katakuri, I just don't see them in the top 5, which is something you need to consider when you're fighting this deck. First, of course, I start with 6,000 leader. Although, honestly, probably could have been 7,000 because I'm at 3 life and I'm not too afraid of taking the damage. But as you can see, we're both still getting used to this, so I forgot to draw for turn. This Usachi is supposed to go to my hand, and then I was trying to play the next card. Because you draw 2 cards per turn, it almost feels like you're cheating. Of course, I only was able to play the 5 cost Luffy because I didn't have a very good target, but still being a blocker is not the worst. Again, we're both messing up how the leader ability works because we're still very new to this. Looking at his targets, I believe that that's the 8 cost Katakuri, or the 8 cost Luffy. And of course he was able to start his board out very quickly because I was able to answer with 9 cost Sanji. If he can't 9 cost Sanji me back, then eventually I can start to take over the board with more card advantage. He ends up picking up the 2000 counter, and although we both have really strong moves up until this point, we're both starting to struggle in a way because we haven't really found the top end that we want. I haven't been able to see his hand, of course, because we aren't playing with the hand holders. He has the 9 cost Sanji in his hand, but he chose not to play the 8 cost Luffy. I don't know if this was correct or not, though. Of course, there's a lot of value to 9 cost bomb. As Bonclay's still on the board, he can hit at 9,000, 9,000, and 8,000 from the Rush Luffy if he chooses to. And although by playing 9 cost bomb, he gets rid of my 5 cost blocker and heals a life, he's actually slowing down the game and giving me a lot of time to get back into it. I believe that maybe it would have been better for him to play 9 cost Sanji at this point and just start to go aggressive because he has the tempo advantage from the beginning of the game. He still hits me with the 9,000, 9,000, but because he didn't fully commit to hitting me, I didn't have to counter out any hits, and I still have 2 life. Nonetheless, though, I am still in a difficult spot, so I do want to make sure that I can actually survive, so I decide to pick up the 1 cost Giant and put the rest of the cards to the top. Obviously, I'm forced to hit the 1 cost Bonkley here, and here, I generally think that you need to be racing the leader, because if you try to deal with the opponent's board and they're hitting your life, you're just going to keep giving them a lot of easy free blocks. Once again, I'm sorry, I forgot to draw for turn, but importantly, I had my second Sanji, and this time, I had a good target. Now this Katakuri restands Big Mom Pirates, and this also includes himself, meaning that after he attacks, he can restand himself and give you an extra rested dong if you ended up minusing your dong on that turn. This card is exceptionally powerful because it's aggressive and defensive at the same time, in the same way that 7 cost Kid was all the way back in OP11. Now moving on to Mr. Hanger's turn, he's still struggling with this top 5. And I think that now that my board has been established to have 3 things that are 8,000 power or higher, it becomes a lot worse for him to actually spread out his board with 9 Sanji and not directly interact with my board. If he ended up setting it up 1 turn earlier like he could have, then it might have been a bit faster. But due to the fact that he's in a situation now where I have more board than him due to the fact that I have Sanji and he doesn't, it ends up getting a lot worse over time because I simply just have more attacks than him. Now, one of the things about Blue Purple Luffy is that his moves are a little bit telegraphed. if he's going to end up playing a high cost thing, he's going to start his attacks with 6,000. This means that just looking at his board, I know that the attacks are going to be 6,000, 9,000, and then at most 10,000. On the first 6,000 attack, if I just counter this out, the 9,000 power attack from 9 cost Mom, I can defend with Gum Gum Giant. And the second attack from the other 9 cost Mom can actually be defended with Katakuri plus a few thousand counter. So in this way, I already know what's going to go on, so I'm just trying to play in a way that holds on to as much counter as possible in my hand. I still don't know what top ends he's going to end up playing, but I know that his attacks are going to be either 9,000 or 10,000, so I just want to make sure that not only my hand is good going into the next turn, so I want to cycle with things like Giant, but also that I can hold on to my hand because he has a massive 9 to 10 card hand right now, while I only have maybe about 6 to 7 cards. Mr. Hanger decides to blind his 9 cost Sanji. However, and unfortunately it's cut off by the way that I was recording, but he ended up flipping over 9 cost Sanji. And of course, as 9 cost Sanji cannot play 9 cost Sanji, he ended up just playing a 9 cost 9,000 vanilla. Now in this scenario, because he ended up messing up the last turn where he could have played 9 cost Sanji with an actual target, and ended up letting me play 2 9 cost Sanjis, and here's my third one, I'm now in a very advantageous spot. Although we've both made misplays up until this point, finally, I'm not going to make a misplay in how my leader really works, and I'm going to actually draw for turn. This should actually just be the turn after I hit 10, but despite this, I have 3 cards that are 8,000 power or higher. Now, I end up hitting at 8,000 first here, because I want to see how threatening I can be with my attacks. As Mr. Hanger doesn't have any blockers on his field and only has 2 life while I have 4 potentially massive attacks, these early attacks feel a lot less threatening than what could come out later. He's technically forced to counter it out because if he ends up taking the hit, then I can just hit really big with 2 Sanjis. I realize that I can do the same threat by hitting with 9,000 power again. Because if he lets the attack through, and I just have 2 really big attacks and defend my life from the next turn, then I can totally survive. However, he ended up countering this out too, out of this fear. I really wanted him to counter out these attacks, so I ended up hitting with 6,000 power at the end, but I do believe that after hitting 8 and 9 and the opponent countering out these 2 attacks, I should have hit 6 and then 9 after that. Although it's a very small thing as he ended up still countering and taking where I expected him to, it could change something depending on what he ends up drawing. Now, I play my third Sanji, 9 Mom, and cut Giant due to the fact that I have too many event counters, and I'm back to having 2 life, while, of course, he only has 4 attacks, and I have a blocker. So mathematically, with the counter in my hand, he cannot kill me this turn, but I'm in a spot where I can kill him next turn. This is the threat that I'm trying to set up throughout the game, and by playing 9 cost Sanji, I can easily out-tempo the opponent. We still both have 7 to 8 cards in hand, and our boards are massive. It's so easy to just defend your life due to the fact that we have so many efficient and powerful counter events. I think that Mr. Hanger's Blue Purple Luffy in this scenario is forced to try to go for lethal here, or else he's guaranteed to lose. As such, this 9,000 power hit is very important. I want to try to make him go for lethal so that he's using up all of his Dong and cannot defend himself the next turn, which is why I purposefully block and counter to try to make him go for lethal more, thinking that he lost counter and a blocker. However, I know that no matter how he ends up hitting me, I can survive as long as I don't end up going down to 0. Unfortunately, my bluff with blocking with 8 cost Katakuri in the beginning to try to make him go for lethal didn't actually work because honestly he knows a lot of my hand through my leader ability. He still is not in a great spot due to the fact that I have now 6 potential attackers and he only has 2 cards in his life. If I can either go for lethal on this turn, or I can just make sure that he cannot kill me the next turn, I am basically guaranteed to win within the next 1 to 2 turns, which is what I am going for. Now I really want to hit at annoying thresholds, such as 8,000 or higher, to try to force him to use more than 1 card. I was trying to see if he had something like Gear Second in his hand with the 8,000 power hit, but he ended up using Jet Gatling, which kind of surprised me. As such, I hit with 9,000 to see if he had Gum Gum Giant. He seems like he almost wanted to use it there, but he was holding on to it. And as I saw him rest his Dong and decide not to rest it, I knew at this moment that he had Gum Gum Giant in his hand, so if I end up hitting at 10,000 from now on, it becomes a lot more annoying for him to actually go for lethal. I'm still debating at this point whether I actually want to try to defend the next turn or if I want to go for lethal, but I honestly think that I have lethal in most scenarios here due to the fact that I have so much counter in my hand and 9 Dong remaining after this 10,000 attack. Now, obviously Gum Gum Giant is crazy card because he only needed to cut one card to be able to counter up to plus 5,000, but despite this, he's still down to 5 cards in hand. So if I spread out my Dong correctly, this really shouldn't be a problem because he doesn't have any more active Dong. This 10,000 power attack at the leader forced him to either cut 3 cards or go down to 0 life. And as he was able to counter this out, he only has 2 cards left. This 10,000 power attack is guaranteed to go through, and 13,000 is also guaranteed to go through, letting me get the win. If you're part of the 30% of people who watch these deck reviews at the end of the video, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. This is the deck that I used within this video. And though I changed some cards since this video, all of the cards in this are the result of a lot of testing, so I want to talk about my logic behind why I use them in this video. Obviously, I'm going to make another video in the future talking about my current list that I'm going to be bringing to my 3v3 tournament. I'm going to be putting that out a little bit later. Now, I think that like Red Purple Luffy, Blue Purple Luffy also has very specific types of cards within his deck. Blue Purple Luffy essentially only has 3 different types of cards in his deck: defensive cards, ramp cards, and top end. Now let's first look at the ramp cards that exist within this deck. Now right now I run 12. I don't know if I want to have more than this, but currently I feel like 12 is a very good bottom value due to the fact that when I'm going second, I really want to be ramping twice, and when I'm going first, I want to potentially get 3. The most important thing is when I'm going second to actually get this 2 ramp, which is why I have it at 12 and not higher. If I'm going to try to go for this triple ramp when I'm going first much more, then I would absolutely consider putting in even something like 16 ramp. In this case, I might put in something like the 3-cost Sorojuro or even the 2-cost Thunder Bagua counter event. Bonclay I still think is one of the best ramp cards that have ever been printed in the game. Of course, it has 1000 counter, and on play it gives you a ramped Dong immediately, but also within the mirror, because a lot of people don't run things like the Searcher, they're forced to hit it with their leader, and being able to absorb one attack with this body is very, very powerful. This, of course, can also be said for the 3-cost Little Doodle, which is why I think that that card can also be considered in this deck a lot more than it used to back when things like Black Lucci were a lot more popular. The second ramp card within this deck is It's to Die For. Now, It's to Die For is a really powerful ramp event if the opponent has a 6,000 power character, but feels a little bit weak in other cases because you might think that something like Lead Performer Disaster may end up being better. However, I think that as you saw in this video, you can see why I chose to use this card. When you're going second, when you're on your 6 Dong turn, but you have 7 because you ramped on the turn before, if you end up using It's to Die For and ramp 1 Dong, you can still play a 5-cost, which right now I run 8 of. With 12 ramp cards in the deck, it's pretty consistent to be able to pull this off, and as such, in this list, I decided to put in It's to Die For. The last card, and one of the most powerful cards that has been printed within this set, is Gear Second. Gear Second is only usable if your leader is blue and purple. Otherwise, it would have made Red Purple Luffy absolutely broken. But essentially, when you use it on your turn, for 3 Dong, you can get 1 rested Dong. And you can use it on the opponent's Dong for 1 Dong to get plus 3,000 to only your leader, similar to the way that Divine Departure works from OP11. However, as it's a ramp card that has an extra effect that gives you counter, it's really easy to use and slot into the deck and doesn't feel like that much of a brick because it doesn't even minus Dong like something like Gum Gum Giant does. Now, in the same vein, I'll just point out right now that I only run 2 Gum Gum Giant in this list, and this is largely due to the fact that because my leader ability, I need to be at 8 at the start of the turn. I cannot minus my Dong by 3, because then I go into the turn with only 7 Dong. As such, that means I can't use 9-cost Mom and Gum Gum Giant on the same turn, meaning that on these turns, Gum Gum Giant ends up getting stuck in my hand. In this game, you actually saw me throw away Gum Gum Giant with the 9-cost Mom effect because I had too many counter events in my hand that I didn't have the Dong to use. This is one thing that I need to be careful of, and one thing that I'm still considering how many I actually need, although it is an exceptionally powerful card, so I can totally see myself going back to 4. Nonetheless, though, because this deck really relies on staying at 10 Dong, some of these larger Dong minus effects can actually end up hurting you in the long run, which is why you don't see some other really powerful cards such as 7-cost Kid. For top end, we have the 9-cost Sanji, 8-cost Katakuri, 9-cost Mom. I think that these are going to be consistent throughout all lists that you see for this leader, because 9-cost Sanji, of course, can call out any of these characters for free, and 8-cost Katakuri and 9-cost Mom are both exceptionally powerful defensive cards. And as this deck excels from just having much more time than the opponent, being able to just play 2 bodies, with one of them being very defensive, forces the opponent into a situation where they have to kill you quickly, but due to the fact that you have so much counter and counter events as well as blockers and the extra life that you get from 9-cost Mom, it becomes really difficult to do so. Now, the other top end that I'm running within this list is 1 8-cost Luffy and 1 9-cost Luffy. Now, the reason why I'm running the 9-cost Luffy is because it's actually extremely powerful within the mirror. Because Katakuri is an 8,000 power blocker, this 10,000 power attack goes above that and also forces the opponent to counter a little bit more if they decide to use Gum Gum Giant plus X. As I believe in the mirror, you're trying to rush each other down as quickly as possible. A card like this with Rush is really powerful. However, I only have it at 1 because it's only really good in the mirror and not necessarily anywhere else. And because I still want to have 10 targets aside from 9 cost Sanji to make sure that I can actually find good targets in the late game, I put in the 8 cost Luffy as another rush character that can still deal with the board with things like Doflamingo's characters as well as the 4 cost Jesus Burgess from Teach. 10 2000 counters, of course all of the amazing counter events, and the one tech card that I have within the deck currently is the 4 cost Blue Pudding. The reason for this, of course, is because in the mirror, your hands tend to get massive, and playing this at the end of the game can really mess up your opponent. Not only this, but it's very good into things such as green-purple Luffy, the random green Bonnies, or the blue Namis that you hit. So, in general, I think it's a very good card, and it's a card that's been helping me a lot in my testing. If you guys enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing because it does help me out. Thank you so much for watching to the end of the video especially. I hope that you guys enjoyed these more in-depth card reviews of the cards within the decks that I play. I really enjoyed making this video, and I promise that I'm going to make more videos soon on not only this list, but all of the other OP11 leaders. I've just been having too much fun with this list. I hope that you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.